This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Kobi Reese. He is a 14-year-old musician sensation who was born and raised in the state of New Jersey. Kobi fronts his own band, Kobi Reese, and has been captivating audiences with his extraordinary talent and electrifying stage presence. Kobi brings an infectious energy to every performance and frequently opens for and performs with many well-known bands throughout the country. Kobi writes his own original music and has a passion for collaborating with various songwriters and producers to gain as much knowledge as possible about the music industry. Kobi's passion for rock and roll and his dreams to shape the future of the genre shine through and make every and each performance unforgettable. Kobi's original music can be found on all digital platforms. Kobi's most recent release, which is Eyes of the Night, which has received over 46,000 streams. He's available on Spotify, and we're going to hear more about him. It's a pleasure to have you on, Kobi.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, wow. You know, it's so interesting. I met you twice last year, and you really, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I walked away, shaking my head. I said, wow, I can't believe it. I said, this is a powerhouse, So
Yeah.
it's really incredible. Your mom, Lori Rodriguez, really amazing. I know she's here with you now during the interview, but it's incredible because she's so proud of you. And when I had a few minutes to talk to her, she's just like, hey, I have other kids, and this is our shining star here, and we're going to follow him and all that. So that's very cool. But, I met you last summer in Long Island, and a lot of people were talking about the David Z Foundation. So I saw you hop up on stage, and there was a lot of big names of people all around you. So we can start out with the David Z Foundation. How did you get involved with them?
I met Paulie Z from the David Z Foundation a long time ago because my old drum instructor from School of Rock, which is when I first started, knew Paulie really well, and he was in a band with him. So then I was friends with Paulie then, and then it kind of snowballed. And one day he asked if I wanted to be part of a program that they were doing because their whole foundation is to kind of help young musicians follow their dreams basically. So he asked me if I wanted to do this program where I would write a song. It's called the Music Mentor Program, and then they would help me write a song and stuff like that. So that's kind of where our connection started.
Well, that's really cool. And that particular day, I mean, there was a cult of personality, right?
Yeah.
My friend Matt Starr, the drummer, he was in Ace Frehley. He's done a lot of work with Mr. Big. Tell me about the people that were on stage with you or doing different acts that day.
Yeah, so I love Living Color. So when Corey Glover was on stage and I was singing backups, it was mind-blowing and I also got to meet him, and I was backstage with everybody. And it was really cool because I don't know if it was that same show, but the most recent show, Paulie dressed up as Tobias Forge from Ghost. I don't know if you know him, but it was really funny, and everybody was in costumes for the Halloween show. And I've done a few jams now, and I even opened one with my band, and they're all great, so fun every time.
Yeah, it's really cool. Tell me more about your band because I know I have to go back in time, though. I know that you started out as a drummer. So let's go back to starting out as a drummer, and then how did you move into being the front, singer, and then holding your own with the band?
So I kind of started the drums when I was 7 years old. I was always banging on my bed frame with chopsticks and things like that. And I used to watch the Sing movie, which is like a cartoon movie. And I used to always play the songs in my headphones and try to drum with chopsticks along. And then on my birthday, I was begging my parents, all I want is a drum kit. And they didn't really want to get me because they knew that I had four other siblings, so the house was going to be very noisy. But they gave in, and they got me a drum kit. And they helped me so much, and they took me to School of Rock to start drum lessons. And then when I was 9 years old, Joey Casada, my drum instructor, wanted me to get out behind the drum kit because I was a little shy, but not really. I was always very bubbly, so he wanted me to get out behind the drum kit. So I started singing when I was 9, and it's funny because my first singing song was Beth by Kiss. And then I kind of just started gaining, like meeting new people and getting new members for the band that I would form, Kobi Reese. So some of the members currently I met through social media, some of them through School of Rock and my music schools and things like that.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you were just playing drums for 2 years when you decided to move to the front of the stage.
Yeah, yeah. And I've kept playing drums throughout my whole like music journey because I love the drums and I definitely can't give it up. But I do like singing also, and kind of decided that singing is more important to me, but I definitely want to keep drumming.
I think that was the perfect song to start out with, Beth. It's timeless. It's a timeless song. But I remember when that came out.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but
Exactly, yeah.
when
But
I was
it,
on stage, I did like throw roses out into the crowd, and it was super
yes.
cool because one, it was my first singing song, so one went in the air raft and one went in someone's food. Yeah, it was good.
Wow, that's cool. It's interesting because when I had met you, I kind of, the whole night, especially at the David Z Foundation, there was a lot going on, and it was just a busy event. And I was walking to my car and I thought, wow, I was thinking about you guys are all young. There was a lot of people there from School of Rock. And it reminded me of when I was in grammar school, which was in the 1970s. And we had a talent show. And the kid that was in my class, I think we were in the fourth grade, and he was brave enough to play Kiss on drums. And of course, he didn't win. They didn't think the drums was talent, and all the kids in our class
Okay.
were crushed. But it was during that time when Kiss was making their big, debut. And you reminded me of Ricky Torrey in Yonkers, New York. I thought, wow, this is exactly what I saw in a lot of my students in that classroom that were pursuing music, because they weren't necessarily running home to be, playing football or playing stickball, or they were running home to practice. And that takes a lot of dedication. So between the years of 7 and 9, were you running home to practice? What was kind of that, discipline set up at an early age?
Yeah, I was playing drums and singing all the time. And it's funny, when I first got my drum kit, I would wake up at 6 a.m. before school and play the drums, and all my siblings would wake up, and I would play all day. And I would just put Iron Maiden on and Kiss, and I would just play along through the whole album and things like that.
Well, you bring up a good point. Iron Maiden and Kiss, they're not necessarily the same.
No, no, no.
So that's a lot different
They were
drumming.
my first. They were my first two concerts I went to. First it was Kiss, then it was Iron Maiden because I love Nico McBrain, the drummer. So, but I love a variety. I listen to a variety of different genres of music, and I love like hearing different types so I can learn.
Wow. Yeah. So Kiss has gone through a lot of different iterations in their lifetime.
Yes.
And even their albums are so, so different. I listen all the time to, conversations, and they say Kiss with makeup, Kiss no makeup, this, solo guy, who stepped away from the band, all of these Kiss conversations. What is your favorite, just to stick with the Kiss, especially since that was your first concert? My first concert was Rat and Poison. So, I mean,
Yes.
that's totally different than Kiss, right? So what
Yeah.
was your experience? You were probably really little going to a Kiss concert. So what
Yeah.
was the setup like? They're very loud, Kiss.
Yeah, they're loud, but I remember I knew so many of their songs. So I went there and my mom painted my face just like Peter. And I went there, and then it was funny because I was sitting on Gene's side, but I was like way back. But then Paul and Gene came out on bucket trucks, and they were over us. And Gene pointed right at me. I remember he was trying to throw me a pick, but he kept hitting people around me. But I always remember that.
That's awesome. That is really incredible. Yeah. It's interesting. I saw Ace Frehley last summer. And, it's just, I've seen Kiss. I saw Kiss in the 90s, and I was standing next to a guy that was literally like, it looked like he was 7 feet tall. He was dressed like
Mhm.
Starman, he had the whole space outfit going on. He had the boots. I mean, the boots alone could have been like, probably 10 inches tall. So
Yeah,
I was always fascinated with Kiss, because just recently I interviewed Mike Schiff, and he had done a movie documentary, which is called The History of Metal and Horror. And, there's a correlation between heavy metal music and horror movies, going back to Alice Cooper and, Rob Zombie and Metallica. And there's a whole lot out there, even Dokken that was involved in, making music for horror movies. But the interesting part is you go back to, what really changed for the fans. This is a band that dressed up, they were like in costume, we were now being entertained by what people look like, and what's going on, especially Gene. Gene had a little bit of a dramatic kind of, that was a little dramatic. And then, Ozzy Osbourne, quite as well, he was involved in, the whole, biting the head of the bat and, all of these conversations. So, yeah. So what was your take on all of that?
I always loved looking at the costumes that all of them wore, and it kind of inspired me because then I kind of realized that people come to a show to watch the band and they watch their stage presence and their costumes, and if you just stand up there, they could listen to you at home. So I kind of realized that I needed to up my stage presence level and put on some costumes, and it's kind of what I do, and it's kind of I love doing it, and yeah.
You're so right. I want to move on to the second time I saw you was at Dingbats in New Jersey. And, I've been going to Dingbats in New Jersey for years. And when you were playing, I said, oh, I can't wait to see, so I came out. And just like a band that's been around for 40 years, brand new bands, fans want to know you. Not every location's going to have a meet and greet. Not every location's going to have a table with merchandise, Even though Dingbats did, there wasn't really an opportunity to meet the band necessarily before you go on. So the band was kind of on stage, and I said, I stood back, I said, let me watch these guys, and you were all communicating with each other, communicating with the sound man, doing all your checks and stuff. But some of the fans approached you, and said, hey, hi, and you shook their hands. And I was standing there. I said, wow, if someone said this person has had this band for 40 years, I would believe it, because that is what a fan's experience is. When you walk away and say, oh, that guy just blew me off, or that guy shook my hand, I'll never forget it, or that guy said, oh, that was a cool whatever I had. It's just amazing. And in those conversations, the conversations you have with the fans when they said, it was your song that really helped me through this problem, or it was your song that really made me realize you're a really great band. Just one song, so that comes from the fans. So what has your experience been with that?
Yeah, I feel like it's always about connecting with your fans because they get you famous and they get you where you are. And I know what it's like too. When I see one of my favorite artists, I'm always super excited to meet them. But I just imagine what it would be like if like one like wasn't nice and like kind of just blew me off. So I'll always remember that and remember what it's like. So I always try to be nice to my fans and make them have a great experience.
It's interesting. I have to just go back and forth between the David Z and the Dingbats, because you have to work in different size venues. So the size of the stage where David Z Foundation was much bigger. How do you manage? Because as a singer, you want to jump around. You want to fly back and forth. You don't want to be disconnecting cables or anything. So
No, yeah. And I love jumping around on stage and stuff because one of my main things is stage presence. So I run around and stuff. And so on Dingbats, it's a little tight, but I just try to connect more with the audience at Dingbats on stages like that rather than move around. But when I have a big stage like 89 North, where the David Z Foundation played, and at the Monsters of Rock Cruise pre-party, there was a huge stage, and there was thousands of people there, and that's when I can really like go to my full potential and light the stage on fire, really.
Wow, you just mentioned Monsters of Rock, which is
Mm,
a lot of my friends actually played that, and I was just like, wow, I
yeah,
really wanted to go. So, tell
yeah.
the audience about Monsters of Rock. First of all, how you got invited, then what the experience was like, what sets you played. Tell us all about that.
So that was my first time going on Monsters of Rock cruise, and initially I was just going to. I was begging my parents just to go for years. For years, I've been asking them to go on the Monsters of Rock cruise, but then Larry reached out to me and he said that he wanted me to perform on it. The person who runs it, so that was like a dream come true because I knew that all my favorite bands were on there. Winger, Stephen Piercy, everybody, Extreme. So when he asked me to perform, my mind was blown because it's crazy. Like being on the cruise, eating at a restaurant, and Kip Winger being next to you, and then Todd Latour from Queensryche at the table to your left. So it's really crazy, and they're some of my biggest idols. So that was a very great time.
Well, that's cool. So, walk us through it. Like, did you do a solo or were you paired up with other bands? I think at one point you played,
Yeah.
you sat in for drums.
Mhm.
You sat in
Yeah.
with a band for drums. So tell us about those highlights because I saw it all on social media and I had like, oh, I was just like, I wish I went, you know? So tell us
Yeah, yeah.
about it.
So basically, so just me went. So they have these jams, and they're called All-Star Jams. And Sebastian Bach was in them, and a lot of people. So then I just like sat in for a few songs. I sang one song, played harmonica, and then I played the drums on the pool stage for one, which was really cool. And then I also sang with Sebastian Bach, which was really cool because the first night that I got there, it was actually in the hotel, so I didn't get on the ship yet. But someone walked by me, and I was singing. I was like, I swear that looked exactly like Sebastian Bach. And then he came up to me, and then we started talking and things like that. And it was crazy, like having a conversation with Sebastian Bach. And we were talking, and he asked me if I wanted to jump on for a song with him, uh, in the jam, and it was a dream come true.
What song did you sing with him?
I sang Youth Gone Wild with him, and I sang Paradise City. It was really cool, but I did that actually 2 nights because he played 2 times.
Wow, you're really lucky. That's incredible. So they asked you to do the drumming, what band was that?
That was the All Star Jam also.
Oh, wow. So, for
Pretty
people
popular.
that don't know what the All Star Jam is like, how would you describe that? They just grab a bunch of different guys and say, we're going to do some song from the 80s. I mean, like, how does that work?
Yeah, so basically they reach out to a bunch of musicians, and they assign them all songs, and there's no rehearsals or anything, and you just kind of have to come know your song good, and you kind of just like talk it over with them a little bit before, like, oh, here's how we're gonna end it and things like that, and the song. But then you kind of just jump on, and it's more like a jam, but it's still really professional, and it's amazing. It's great.
Wow, I heard the video and it was like really incredible. I mean, just really incredible. The thing that got me though, I was like, right on. I saw you come out with Ted Poley and I was like, that's not Kobe's hair. So, what was going on? You had a wig on,
Yeah,
doing
so
it
me
with.
me and Ted have been doing this for a while now. So I it's like I'm his mini Ted. So I put a blonde long wig on, and we both wore sailor hats, and then we threw them out into the crowd, and I had my danger vest with my Ted Poley pins, and I throw out Ted Poley guitar picks and things like that. So like I come out first, in a song, and then everybody's like, wait, that's not Ted Poley. And then he comes and joins me. But it's our little thing that we do. So it's I love doing it. I love performing with Ted, and he's a great guy. And yeah, all and everybody in their band's great.
Yeah, Danger Danger, that brings me back. So what songs are you known to do together? Cuz they were a great band. I love them.
Yeah, yeah. So and I also play these with my band too. But when I perform with Ted, I usually do Bang Bang or Naughty Naughty, and I they're great songs. So I added them to our band set list, and they're both great songs to play live, and we love doing them. And I also did the Monsters of Rock cruise theme with him.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, the way you talk about the Monsters of Rock cruise, it is just like it's like you went to heaven or something. I mean, just sitting
Yeah.
there in a restaurant and you have these guys sitting around you ordering their food and eating their food, and then you're actually on stage. So, if you had been on the Monsters of Rock, say you were not Kobe, say you were just a fan and you were attending as a fan, how do you think your experience would be different between being a performer and then being a fan?
So there is like one place that only performers can go, and that's like the one restaurant where all the musicians go and eat. And you're not supposed to bother like any musician when they're eating, but it's very hard, but because it's crazy. But if even if you're just a guest, it's still a great experience because the musicians are just like walking around. So like we were just waiting in line to go to a show, and Nuno and Patrick walked by, so we grabbed some photos. But it's great, yeah, and it's crazy because I walk in an elevator and Kip Winger's standing right in front of me, and it's crazy.
Wow, I am very jealous.
Yeah, yeah, you should go. You should
Yeah,
go next time.
exactly. Well, next year it's happening again.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting because you had many days at sea, but then I do think they go to port, right? So where did they stop on the Monsters of Rock cruise?
So first they stopped at their like Norwegian's own little island, and then they went to Nassau in the Bahamas. Yeah.
So you got off the ship for both of those.
Yeah, it was tough to get off because there were so many bands on there, but we did get off on like the Friday morning, and we hung on the beach and stuff like that, and I got a henna tattoo, stuff like that. So I got some actual cruise time too.
Oh, that's neat. So, for those that don't want to go to the locations, they stay on the ship and they still have entertainers. So, you still have people that are playing in bands if no one is getting off. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. And there, like, no matter what time of day it is, shows are always going on. And it'll be like midnight, and Michael Schenker will be playing in the theater. So then I was always staying up until like 1 or 2 in the morning because there was always a band to see, and I didn't want to miss one because sometimes they only played once. So it was rough because we got really tired, but it's definitely worth it because we were staying up until like 1 or 2 and waking up at 7 for the photo experiences. It was a great time.
That's incredible. That really, really is incredible. And, well, we are really endorsing the Monsters of Rock cruise here. I mean, this conversation is should make everyone want to go. Really
Yeah,
incredible. How many days is it? Is it 4 days at sea, 5 days at sea?
yeah, it's 5 days.
Wow.
And
Wow.
originally, my family goes on normal cruises for like 7 days. So when we heard it's 5 days, we're like, all right, that's easy. It's only 5 days. But halfway through, we've realized like this is a lot because you're walking around like all day, standing, waiting in lines, in mosh pits, and you're waiting for a band to go on so you can get front row like an hour before. So it's crazy.
Wow. That is incredible. It's a wonder that people have time to fit in the pool with all that.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny because I was confused because we've been on like a ship similar to that before, and I was saying like there was usually a pool here, but then they were like replaced the pool with like land with like turf, so then people could stand and watch the bands on the pool deck.
That's really neat. That is really incredible. Wow. Well, I am so proud of you. I just can't tell you. You have a lot going on. I was looking at your website and you have a very big trip planned, and I want to make sure we get to talking about it. You were invited to go to Germany. Is that correct?
Yes, I was.
Wow. So is this just you or is this your whole band? What is the story with the Germany trip?
So I know I have a good friend from Bonfire, which is a huge band in Germany, and they invited my band to support for them and open for them. So it's crazy, and we're gonna be gone. We have 6 shows planned, and we're gonna be there about a week and a half. I think we're gonna do some sightseeing, but it's really great because I've never been out of the country too much. I've been to the Caribbean, but that's about it. So it's gonna be a really good trip for our band, and we're gonna get a lot of exposure there. So
Well, you're not kidding.
yeah,
That is a big trip, is right.
yeah, and
I
we're also
look.
putting an album out in the summer for our tour. So
Your album is coming out just before you go on this Germany trip,
yeah.
right? So that'll be a
Mhm.
good promotion for you. Great. And I also looked at that trip. I don't know, but it looks like you're going to be playing at a castle. Is that correct? Is it a castle?
Yeah, there were a lot of big venues. Not sure if it was a
Wow.
campus, but
It's more than one
yeah.
location in Germany.
Yeah, no, we're it's weird because it's not all in like one line either. We go here and then it's like 2 hours this way and then it's all over. But yeah, we looked into the venues and there's some really cool places that we're playing, so we're all really excited. And we also have like everybody's family coming because we're still like young, so everybody in the band except my only two members in our band are above 18, but their families are also coming just because um, yeah, our families, everybody's family, always supports the band and they help us with merch and things like that. So everybody's great.
Well, this is going to be really an exciting. I know it's going to be very different from Monsters of Rock, but it's going to be a different experience because you are adding things to your music resume very early on in your career. I mean, to
Yes.
play a
Yeah.
European, audience, and that is really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. So, are you familiar with bonfire music? I mean, is your band being prepped like, you guys might have to jump in and play some songs with them, or are you just going to do your act and then they're on? Like, is there any
Well,
discussion?
yeah, what we've heard so far is just kind of we're gonna go on before them, but ever since we heard that we were doing that, we've been listening to all the bonfire songs and everything, and we've been promoting our videos and stuff to Germany to try to get more fans there, more people at our shows.
That's great. That is really great. So we're going to have to work on promoting your Germany trip because
Mhm.
that is really amazing. Bonfire is that's incredible. Very, very
Thank you.
cool. So we want to raise money so that you guys can go on this trip and have all of that. So in order for your fans to do that, you're recommending they do merchandise sales, buy
Yeah,
hats, and
we sell shirts, bottle openers, keychains, sweatshirts, and we have an online store and we'll mail it to you, or you can come to our shows and get it because every purchase, whether it's a bottle opener or a shirt, it helps us out so much because we're going to be spending a lot of money on this trip, from the planes and travel and things like that, renting transportation from one show to the next. And you could just email us if you want to help us out and buy something from our merch stand. And yeah, it would help us out so much.
just tell them the email address and your website so we could plug that now.
Yeah, my website is kobireese.com, and you can message me on there or you could buy it on there. And my email is kobireeserocks at gmail.com.
Okay, great. So now we really got to get in and find out who these members of the band are. So you're going to have to go through each one and tell us about each one of your band members.
All right, yeah. So we've gone through a lot of changes recently, but all the members in the band are staying for life now because we have a great group of musicians. The first one that joined the band out of us was Dallas, or besides me, was Dallas. We found each other on social media. He originally reached out to me and he asked if I wanted to just jam a little bit. And I was like, yeah, we could jam. But then he came over and he was like crazy good. So, and then we just became friends because first, the first members in the band were all adults because I started out with some kids, but they were just too unreliable a little bit, and they were like leaving for college and things like that, and they would cancel, they would back out on a show like a few days before. So then I just switched to adults because I could rely on them. But then Dallas came along and we started transitioning into a younger band. And then the next one that we got was Will Laporte on the keyboards, and he's great. He's in college right now, but uh, he doesn't live too far away, so he's a great guy. And then we also had another guitar player, but he left for college in California. And on the bass guitar, we have Dylan, who went to my music school, and he is 16 years old. And then on drums, we have Richie, the newest member of the band, but he's great.
So, are you looking for a guitar player, an additional one, or?
Yeah, we're looking for a guitar player, but we don't know if we're just gonna go one guitar player or we're gonna have two, but we're still looking for one. And if one good comes along, it yeah, we're just trying to find a perfect fit for the band. So
That's really important. A lot of my friends have been in bands, famous and non-famous. And one of the biggest things that really keeps a band together is the personalities of the band. And
um,
I'm sure there's many famous stories about bands
yeah,
and personalities in bands and all of that. But it is very true, though, because you have to, like any job, and as much as you love this and this is your passion, it's still a job. Everyone
yeah,
needs to
it is.
pull their weight, right? So you have to be able to keep on top of all the changes and be
Exactly,
flexible.
yeah. And we've had a few guitar players, and some of them didn't work out and things like that. So now we're just really trying to find the perfect member because we're the rest of the band. We're all like super great friends, and we hang out. We go like downtown and stuff like that. We go to the arcade, and we all just like love hanging out with each other. And we want to find the right person because we don't want to have somebody and bring them in the band that brings us down or anything. That's just not a good fit. And it's also important uh, to sell tickets to our shows because some of the shows we get at like the Stone Pony or even Dingbats, we have to sell a certain amount of tickets. So if somebody really doesn't sell a bunch of tickets, it makes us have to pull their weight.
Absolutely. You bring up a really good point because even bands that are established bands, and you've seen this, in the news, that tours get canceled and locations get crossed off of a list if ticket sales are not good. So
Yeah,
you could have a career, for 40 years, and the ticket sales just aren't there. And the venue
yeah,
can't take the risk, the band can't take the risk, so it's a risk all over. So,
yeah,
yeah, you're
exactly.
learning early here.
Yeah, yeah.
You really are. That is really amazing. So let's go back to this members of the band for a second. So, out of all of your members of the band, did they all go to School of Rock? You went to School of Rock?
No, so just I went to School of Rock, and I was actually in School of Rock the same time as Dylan, my bass player, the same one too, and that was how we met originally. And our drummer went to School of Rock in a different town, Somerville. So we didn't really know him, but we just knew he went to School of Rock, and yeah, and Will went to my other music school, Rocket Academy, and that's how we met, and just me and Dallas met over social media.
That's awesome. So, School of Rock, really, that is such an amazing. I talked to a couple of people recently, and they didn't realize that School of Rock is a real entity. They thought it was just a
Oh yeah,
movie.
yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah,
what? So,
the
there's
movie's
a.
great too, but
Exactly. But if you're not in the music scene or you're not in the music
mhm,
world, you really only have one side of the information. Because this person was like, oh, it
yeah,
was a great
exactly.
movie. And I'm like, no, people go there,
No, yeah, it's like a music school, and that's kind of how my career started. Um, I learned everything I know there, and it's really great for younger musicians. But it was just time for me to leave a few years ago, just because I wanted to pursue my own band, and it was just taking up too much of my time. So I figured that the time would be better spent helping my own band. So I just decided to leave. But it's a great place, and I know a bunch of musicians, young musicians, learn there, and it's great.
I have to mention in your bio, you write all of your original material. I've
Mhm.
seen you perform your original material, but I've also seen you perform covers. You do both of them flawlessly. You know,
Thank you.
it's really amazing, and you can tell. Like I was watching, you kind of like you bring up the song, especially when you're on the stage, and you may tell like a little bit of a story, like why we wrote this song, and you actually wrote a song for one of your friends, and his mom died of cancer. So,
I did,
tell
yeah.
me about your inspiration in songwriting.
Yeah, so it was about a year ago that happened, maybe a little longer ago. But we're great friends, so I felt that I needed to do something to help him, but I didn't really know, and songwriting is kind of my thing. So me and Dallas came up with this cool song, and then I decided that I wanted to dedicate that song to him and write the lyrics about him, um, because I figured it would help him out, and yeah, and it's one of our favorite songs now. But
Tell me
yeah,
about the song.
so it's called "Hold On," and that's why I wrote it. But me and Dallas wrote it for that about the same time that happened a year ago, and it's on Spotify and everything. You can listen to it, and we made a music video for it too. Um, and it's music video is pretty great, and I always dedicate it whenever I'm on stage to my friend, and I also always dedicate it to anybody who knows someone who either passed away or needs some help, because I want my music to help people, and that's really one of my main goals in life, because I want my music to help people around the world. So
And you're right, because songwriters do that, and they do that very uniquely. There's so many times you listen to a song and you're like, that's what they were saying.
yeah,
It's so funny because a lot of times people say like it's misheard lyrics. You're
mhm,
driving in the car, or you're listening to a song, and you're like, this is what I think they're saying, and then you
mhm.
go and look at the words, and you're like, wow, that I was singing the wrong lyrics the whole
Yeah, I know
time.
that happens to me all the time.
Yeah,
Sometimes I don't want to know the actual lyrics though, because then
it messes with your head,
man,
right?
yeah, it messes me up.
Wow, it's interesting. But songwriting is tough, you know. You really have to find what you want to write about, especially now. I think songwriters are really challenged because there's so many big social issues that people are facing, especially musicians with their fans. There's so much with mental health. There's so much going on. People are stressed, you know. So when you
Mhm.
think about writing songs in the future, do you have a direction of, do you want to help a particular population? Do you want your music to be more ballad? How do you see that in the future? Because your band is kind of growing. Every event you have, you're kind of growing.
Yeah, so me and Dallas make like a variety of different songs. So really, if everybody likes listening to them and it helps anybody, even if it's one person or a few people, then that's really our goal, because that's what we want to do for life, and we want people to know our songs really well and be singing them. And we want to tour on our original music and make them popular.
So in the band, has anybody been from a musical family?
Well, my dad played a little guitar when he was younger, and so did my mom. But it was really just from I picked up the instruments from them, like playing the music in the house. And then I was like the first one in my family who wanted to play the drums, really, or any instrument.
That's incredible. What about the other members in your band? Or any of them from musical families?
No, I don't think so. I think my bass player's dad might play an instrument or something, but they don't really bring it up too much. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I just find it fascinating because it's really a skill. If you listen to people that really never played and they pick up an instrument later in life, one, for instance, is Howard Stern. He talks often about he picked up a guitar later in life, and he said, I'm so proud I can get through a song, or I'm so proud I can actually recognize my own song when I'm playing it. And then he made a point recently. I was listening to him on Sirius, and I said, "Oh, wow, I never thought of that." He said, I've been playing the guitar sitting down. He said, it's a whole nother world when you stand up with a guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you realize these things if you're not a musician. You say, oh, look, they're holding the guitar. And, last weekend I saw Willie Nile play, and he swings his guitar behind his back,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's just amazing. And even Dario Sexus, when he's playing with Aldo Nova, he'll take his guitar and he'll swing it around his neck, So
Yeah, crazy.
some of these tricks that they do on stage is pretty amazing, So it's just hard enough to play it. And now you're going to be, jumping in with all these, antics and stuff. So just to kind of go on that, because you're still growing into who you want to become, who do you think you'd like to see yourself be? Because there's a lot of greats out there. You have people like David Bowie, and you have David Lee Roth. And I mean, the stage presence of a lot of these iconic frontmen. Who do you pick 3 guys that you would be like, that would be really cool?
Yeah, so definitely Bon Jovi. And I know now people are like saying stuff about him, but I think he was great, especially in the 80s, and his stage presence. And I look up to him and I learn from him. And also Bruce Dickinson, too, for that same reason. His stage presence is great. And I also love Bret Michaels and David Lee Roth, too. They're like the OGs. But I learned so much from everybody I watch. And I love looking at videos from like the 80s and 90s, if there is any, because I learned so much from the people I watch and the musicians. So.
Yes, and it is pretty incredible when you go back and look at old footage of David Lee Roth, and you could see him, twirling around the mic stand and then doing those high jumps and splits in the air. It's
Yeah.
a wonder, and even just the other night, midweek, I was downtown and I went to a Michael Monroe concert, and he was big back in the 80s at the Cat Club and all of that. And he made his way through the crowd, and I was standing by the bar. And all of a sudden, I see this leg swing over my head. He had climbed up onto a single railing, wrapped his leg around this pole that I was standing next to, and got himself onto the bar, danced across the bar, and then came back and wrapped his leg around the pole. And I was like, oh my gosh, the security guard was so rattled. He dropped his flashlight. I was like, oh my God. But that, you walk away, because my friend Steve Conzi is the guitarist in that band, and even Ted Kearns, he does guitar in Michael Monroe, and Michael Monroe was on Monsters of Rock, Cruise.
Yeah, yeah.
You saw him. He's like a live wire, that guy, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And his blonde hair, too.
Yes, blonde hair. And let me tell you, he has energy, jam-packed energy, that guy. But when I saw this leg go over my head, I said, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
like,
crazy.
but you walk away from that concert and you say, okay, great music, great guys in the band. That's a show I'll never forget,
Exactly. He interacts with the audience so much.
Exactly. And you say, wow, I got a memory. And I really appreciate you picking out frontmen and all of that, because you have to have a place where you see yourself going, and everyone's going to be an individual, but you have to in some way say, I have a vision, this is what I would like to see, in the future and all of that.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've learned in a very short period of time about the music industry, because a lot of people talk about this. Music is now streaming, right? So back in the day, a lot of people were running out and buying an album, or you were running out and buying a cassette. Now, if you say to somebody, I'm going to buy an album, they look at you like, what? Or I still have a cassette, or I still have an 8-track from the 1970s. Music is portable, right? So you could have it on your phone, you could have it on your desktop, you could have it in your, whatever. So tell me about downloading, because you're the one that's making these albums. So there's a lot of responsibility for you to be able to promote your music so that someone knows to go and download it. Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. So Exactly. So we always try to put our songs behind everything, and we play all our songs live. And we always say you could go stream it on Spotify and things like that, but you really don't make much money from those streams. So the real money comes in from like merch and things like that, and playing live. But if people know your songs, then they'll be like, "Oh, I want to go! I want to go see this band live," and then they'll buy your T-shirt. So the songs really start it all, but you also need to promote them, like you said, and you got to put them on social media and tell everybody to listen to them. Like when I'm in school, I always tell my friends to listen to my songs and things like that because it helps.
That's great. And can they buy the actual CD?
Yeah, when we make our albums in the summer, we're gonna get physical CDs and vinyls. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about that because I do a lot of driving, and
Mhm.
and both of my cars have a CD player, so
I'm
I will
glad you
be
don't have the
buying
same
two,
as us.
one for each car. But it's funny about it because sometimes you can't talk about a new release. What can you talk about with this upcoming album?
To expose any of the songs or anything, but like that. But we can just like give information about like the albums, and we're gonna be releasing some teasers of us in like the studios and things like that, so we could see a little bit, but can't say too much.
All right, and the album's going to be released in early June. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah,
And there's going to be music videos with it.
yeah. We're gonna put the music videos out after the album. Probably like once every few months, we'll put a music video out for the songs, but.
So this interview is going to be airing in 2 weeks' time, which is going to be around April 10th. Tell us about the gigs that you have coming up that you want to highlight before your summer in Germany.
So on April 13th, I'll be playing with the David Z Foundation at the All Star Jam in 89 North, which will be good because I know we talked about that. And also on August 15th, I'll be opening for Trickster at Dingbats, which is really cool. And I've also got a bunch more shows that you can look at on our website at kobireese.com, and also we'll be going to Germany, like we said. Yeah, but you can check out all our shows on our website and social media.
Great. So we're going to wrap up the interview with playing your song Light in Your Eyes. Tell us about that.
So we wrote Light in Your Eyes a while ago, but it's a great song, and it's our newest release. And yeah, hope you enjoy.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, and we're going to roll out with that. Thanks again, Kobe, and I look forward to seeing you at the next show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
When I can't find my way, I'm guided by the light in your eyes. Oh, when I can't find my way, I'm guided by the light in your eyes.
You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.